What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J.R.R, and thank you for joining me for the third Age Reforged replay battle. This one is a mighty 3 versus 3 on the PELENNOR Fields map, pitting two very high-tier armies against one another. Two teams of high-tier armies, I should say. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the army compositions, then we can jump right into the battle. The first army is the army of Rune, being commanded by Zenixia. He has 2 units of Brotherhood of the Axe, 2 units of Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen deployed on either flank. He's also got 4 units of Loke Flag Rim. These guys are very nice armor-piercing heavy infantry, good at fighting other factions' heavy infantry, although they do tend to melt in the face of 2 HP units, so they do not have a lot of endurance. The rest of his infantry force consists of 4 units of Loke Scion Rim. These guys are very reliable, 2 HP spearmen, definitely a worthy choice for your battle line. They will fight for a long time before they collapse. His skirmish line consists of 2 units of clan crossbows. You can see them here stretching all the way back to the horizon. And 2 units of Balkoff tribesmen. These are really nice javelin men, probably some of the better units in the game. They're kind of like upper mid-tier javelins, really good at what they do. He's also got a couple units of the Loknar Rim. These guys are excellent little bows, a little bit vulnerable to missile fire, which is their big drawback, but they do have nice numbers and nice damage. You can see them here getting ready to fire their enemies, looking very swag in that beautiful golden armor. Over here, the rest of his force consists of his cavalry wing. He's got 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Lance. These are some of the best cav in the game, and 2 units of Varied Cataphract. So a very strong, very well-rounded runic force. I actually really like this army. The second army on this team is the army of Rohan, being commanded by Stefan 2110. He's got 2 units of Royal Guard, 1 unit of Royal Lords, which is one of the units of Rohan that got a nice buff in the 0.85 patch. They are now extremely strong. He's also got, I believe, 2 units, or perhaps just 1 unit of Arid Heavy Lancers, and 1 unit of Rohan Bodyguards, which is where his general is hanging out. His infantry force consists of a lot of the new units that Rohan received in 0.85, one of them being the Marshals of the Red. You can see them right here. They're kind of like a high-tier infantry choice for Rohan, who desperately needed one. You can also see a couple units, well, sort of see a couple units of Shield Maidens right here. They're kind of like a mix between like skirmish and like medium infantry. They are 2 HP and they have armor-piercing missiles which do a lot of damage, and they are very fast, so they are hard to pin down. They are almost like light cavalry in terms of how swift they are. The rest of his force consists of these dismounted Royal Guard. These guys are an old favorite. You all know that they are very reliable, very nice 2 HP spearmen. His center consists of 2 units of Arid Lancers, which actually makes his center quite weak. I probably would have gone a different route with my deployment, but he's got 2 units of Arid Lancers right there. And on his right flank, he's got a couple units of Rittermark Axemen, who are kind of like mid-tier shock infantry. They're not bad for what they are. In addition to all of that, he's got 2 units of Helmingas, which will kind of round out his skirmish line in addition to his 2 units of the Shield Maidens. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the third army for this team, this being the forces of the High Elves, being commanded by Mini Maki. And I'm actually really impressed with how well he uses his forces in this battle. He's got 3 units of Elder Archers and 1 unit of the Noratirno Archers over here on his right flank. His infantry force consists of a single unit. There's a very nice line here of Sword Quendi forming his right flank. He's also got a nice checkerboard formation here with 3 units of Elder Spearmen standing alongside 2 units of Mithlon Nobles. His second line consists of 3 units of Elder Swordsmen. And his cavalry force, which you can see here, is 1 unit of Elder Lancers and a single unit of Elder Nobles. Also in the back here, very easy to overlook these guys because they are kind of invisible. He's got 3 units of Sindar Blade Masters to round off his infantry force. So very powerful High Elven infantry, and quite a lot of them. The only thing he's really lacking in is cavalry, which is kind of okay because his opponent over here, the Dwarves, does not have a whole lot of cap either. He's got 2 units of Ironfoot Goats. This is Curry Monster commanding the Dwarves, by the way. 2 units of Ironfoot Goats, 1 unit of Ironfoot Hammer Guard. His infantry force is really impressive. He's got 1 unit of Hammerers of Gundabad, 1 unit of Dwarven Noblemen, 2 units of Casa Sentries, 1 here, 1 on the other flank. His center being composed of 3 units of Ironfoot Guard. And his second line of reserves are Guards of Khazad-dûm, Dragon Slayers of Arid Mithrin, and some Mithril Guard, which is one of the new-ish sort of units. This is the previously known as Balin's Guard, and they are extremely powerful in this patch. They have like 86 defense, a lot of AP attack. They are very powerful, but they are very slow, which is their big drawback. His skirmish line consists of a single unit of Blacklock Engineers. I'm not really a big fan of Blacklock Engineers. I find that they tend to get outshot by units such as the Ironfoot Crossbows. Mostly due to their low numbers, and he has 3 units of Ironfoot Crossbows in addition to those Blacklock Engineers. The second army on the other team is the Kingdom of Arnor, and this is a really nice force as well. He's got 2 units of Knights of Anuminas, 1 here, 1 on the other side, and in the center you can see his General's Bodyguard. This is it's your standard bodyguard unit for the Kingdom of Arnor. His infantry force is nicely well-rounded. He's got 2 units of Dunedain Spears, 1 here, 1 on the other flank, and I believe 2 units of Pikes in the center. Pretty risky unit to bring, I think. Pikes are very good, but they are extremely vulnerable to missiles, and especially in an open field battle like this. you could quickly find your pike line evaporating under intense archer fire. But they're pretty good for what they do, and if you can get them into melee, then they will serve you very well. He's also got 2 units of Battle Ready Dunedain here to back up the Dunedain Wardens. 3 units of Arnor Men-at-Arms in the center, which normally is a bit of a crazy choice because these guys are kind of like lower tier infantry. But they back up the pike units quite well with a lot of numbers, so it's not a bad decision if you can have a skirmish advantage, which is definitely what the Arnor player has over his Rohan opponent. His second, or his I should say third and fourth lines of reserves consist of 2 units of Arthedain Men-at-Arms and 2 units of dismounted Dunedain Knights. So a really nice, very powerful infantry force, and I think Rohan's really going to struggle against them. The third and final army for this team is the Army of Apollo the Great, commanding the Sylvan Elves. He's got 1 unit of Elder Pathfinders here, and 1 on his right flank. He's also got a single unit of Elder Kingsguard, which is where his general is hanging out. His infantry force is very, very sparse, and I think it's because he spent a lot of money on his cavalry. He's got 2 units of Elder Royal Guard here in the front, and 2 units of Hiri Beng to round off his skirmish line. So he's extremely outnumbered in terms of skirmishers, although he does outnumber the Runic player in terms of bow skirmishers. But yeah, he's definitely outnumbered pound for pound in terms of missiles. He's also got 2 units of Hiri Spearmen and a couple units of Sylvan Hiri Spearmen here in his center. He's got a couple units of Hiri Lang to form his third line, and a single unit of Elder Palace Guard. These guys are amazing. 5 HP heavy infantry, a huge charge bonus, and armor piercing as well. You can't quite see them, but they are hanging out somewhere in here. He's got a couple units of Sindar Blade Masters who are hiding. So let's go ahead and let's start this very epic battle. So look at this. You can see Rune just charging forward. This seems to be one of the rules of this engagement, is that all of the armies kind of have a limited skirmish phase, and they just kind of run very quickly towards the other side. It's going to get very chaotic and very bloody in just a few seconds. So Rune being very aggressive moving forward here. The Sylvan Elf player opting to give him instead the initiative because he has all of his archers set up right now, and you can see him begin to pepper this runic formation as they move forward. Really unfortunate for the Rune player. You can see a lot of his units going down, but unfortunately he's got his fire arrows on, so hopefully he turns those off very quickly. Yeah, you can see that he has. So the Rune player is going to take some very heavy casualties, especially among his Locate Flag Rim as he moves them in. But this is a very, very smart move on the part of Zenixia, is that he's using his infantry force as a screen for his cavalry. So when the opportunity arises, he's going to charge them kind of suddenly outwards and begin to engage these Elder Pathfinders. And normally this is a really nice engagement for the for the Brotherhood of the Lance, who are very powerful cavalry. And these Elder Pathfinders quite weak in to missile fire, which you can see coming in from his supporting archer line. But the Elder Pathfinders are actually beginning to pull this back. You can see the Brotherhood of the Lance taking a lot of casualties here. And I think this has to do with the fact that they have managed to kind of wrap around on this flank here and are really starting to crush this line. But luckily for the Runic players, breaking any very Cataphracts, and look at this. These Pathfinders are going to melt. These are 2 HP heavy cavalry, and they are just dying like dogs. And unfortunately, the Sylvan Elf player does not really have an answer to this. His other unit of Elder Pathfinders, I believe, is engaged over here and has been quickly routed by a combined force of the Runic Varied Cataphracts and a unit of the Heavy Lancers who are now seeing these guys off. So the Sylvan Elf cavalry crushed in the first few moments of the game. This is going to be really, really difficult for the Sylvan Elf player, because look at this. Now he has nothing to defend his back line from these Varied Cataphracts who are breaking through over here, and over on this side as well. The Brotherhood of the Lance have managed to break through with that unit of Varied Cataphracts, and they're going to push through very quickly. Still very healthy, 43 in that unit. The Brotherhood of the Lance a little bit more manageable, down to 15, but yeah, look at this. He really needs to mobilize his Elder Kingsguard and try and fend off this cavalry who is now coming for his very valuable Elder Royal Guard. So let's go ahead and let's slow this down just a little bit, because a lot happens very quickly. You can see the infantry fight kind of a little bit in favor of the Arnor players, who is beginning to kind of wrap around this flank of the dismounted Royal Guard and is beginning to crush them. Look at this, defeat now certain for these very elite units. Over here you can see the shield maidens beginning to open fire on these Dunedain Wardens. So this is going to be a devastating volley. Let's watch. Oh, unfortunately for the Kingdom of Arnor, this is Creed, by the way. I forgot to mention his name earlier. But his Dunedain Wardens, they have turned around, and now a lot of them are going to take shots to the rear from those very powerful missiles from the shield maidens. So things looking really nice over here. He's managed to pin down this unit of cavalry, and looks like these Knights of Inuminas now in full retreat, with the Royal Lords and all of this cavalry over here able to support the Rohirrim cavalry and infantry on his left flank. Over here, though, things not looking so great. Looks like he's very busy with his cavalry and has kind of forgotten about his Riddermark Axemen entirely. And this unit now completely destroyed by the Dunedain Rangers. I mean, they're right there. If he had charged them in, he would have been able to either drive them back behind the spearmen and prevent them from shooting into his infantry directly, or he would have wiped them out because the Arnor player might not have seen it. And over here, this one looking, you know, reasonably healthy, but I think they're going to suffer the same fate as their Riddermark Axeman brothers. So this this Dunedain left flank now completely unengaged because of the loss of micro by the Rohan player. It's very unfortunate for him. Okay, let's go. Let's move quickly over here and let's take a look briefly at the High Elven engagement and the dwarves. Doesn't look like anything has really happened yet. He is defending his skirmishers with some spears, but I think he's going to let them get charged here by these Ironfoot War Goats. And I don't know if this is part of a strategy on his part. Maybe he's trying to kind of draw them in to a surround here. You can see he's bringing in some of his Elder Nobles, and they're going to, I think, assist this infantry in taking down these Ironfoot War Goats. But I don't know. Looks like he managed to get his Ironfoot, or his Norituno warriors back behind his lines, away from those Ironfoot War Goats. But I think he's got a huge gap right here, and these guys are going to be able to charge right through it. But you know what? I think this is just a plan on the part of the High Elf player to draw this cavalry into a trap, essentially. So the Dwarven player isn't going to buy it. Curry Monster is going to instead opt to bring all of his cavalry around this formation to cut off the retreat of these Norituno archers, which of course is going to oblige the High Elven player to bring in his cavalry. This is Elder Nobles, his general's bodyguard, to try and get into the back of these Hammerfoot guard, but unfortunately that's going to leave them out of position and able to be rear charged by this unit of Ironfoot War Goats. You can see them now moving in there, but I think we might start to see the trap be sprung a little bit as the High Elven player begins to move in some of his infantry. Looks like some of the Dwarven Goats got caught on the High Elven spears here, which is a very unfortunate thing for them, and he's going to lose quite a lot of the unit. The unit now was almost on the verge of routing. It was shaken, and that could have continued very, very quickly and cascaded into a rout. So the High Elven player now is going to kind of close the gaps, I suppose, and bring in a lot of his infantry to smash this Ironfoot War Goat horde, essentially, and drive back the Dwarven player. Let's go take a look over here. It looks like the Sylvan Elves are really struggling hard. Look at this. He's got Rohan, and he's got Varied Cataphracts in his back lines, along with some infantry, some Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. Looks like the Runic player, using his superior numbers to bring troops around here. He's engaged the Sindar Blade Masters on every front, so his hidden third line now completely occupied. The Brotherhood of the Axe and Loki Scion Rim, who will hold forever, and which has given him the opportunity to bring a lot of infantry and a lot of cavalry into the back. Look at this huge charge into those Fury Bank. These guys are going to get absolutely butchered. Let's go ahead and let's speed it up a little bit, and so we'll watch the demise of the Sylvan Elf player. Apollo the Great really suffering hard here, being ganged up on a little bit by the superior cavalry of the Runic and Rohan player. I'm not too sure where his Elder King's Guard is hanging out right now. Looks like that's them right there, charging now into the flank of these Rohan bodyguards. Maybe trying to go for the Rohirric general. Hopefully, if he can take it down, maybe he'll be able to rout some of the cavalry and lessen his woes. But I don't think that Elder King's Guard on their own is going to be enough to save his archers or to take down these Runic Cataphracts, who are very, very healthy. Look at them, 23 and 34. They're just slaughtering these guys. Fury Beg going down just so quickly, just being scythed through by the combined cavalry of these two allies. Over here, the infantry fight going a little bit better. You can see the Elder Palace Guard in the back lines of the Runic player. Oh dear, looks like the Arnor General just went down to Rohan in his back lines. We'll go and take a look at that in just a second. Let's go ahead and slow it down just a little bit. Yeah, the infantry fight going a little bit better, I think, for the Sylvan Elf player, but he's still slowly being kind of pushed through by these huge numbers of Loki Flag Rim. You can see the lines beginning to bulge a little bit here. But now that he's got these Elder Palace Guard here in the back ranks fighting against the Balkov tribesmen, of all things, then I think these Elder Guard are going to chew these guys out very quickly, and maybe he can turn the infantry fight around, but I don't think he's going to have enough time to do it. Look at this. You can see now some hammer and anvil strikes going into the backs of those Sindar Blade Masters, and the Sylvan Elf General has fallen. So I think this is going to be the end of the Sylvan Elf player. Very unfortunate for him. He deployed quite close to cavalry-heavy factions, and he didn't really have the cavalry to fight them off. And I think he kind of threw away some of his Elder Pathfinders as well. Over here, Rohan seems to be really struggling hard. Looks like Arnor has brought his third line to bear, some dismounted Dunedain Knights, now fighting against the Marshals of the Red and these Shield Maidens, who really aren't up to the task of fighting them, especially when they're backed up by all these Dunedain Wardens, and this huge push by these Arthurian men-at-arms. A really nice oblique formation here. You can see he heavily outnumbers him on this left flank, which is going to allow him to crush his Shield Maidens and then roll up the line and end this infantry engagement very quickly. So some nice play on the part of the Arnor player. Over here, the dismounted Royal Guard kind of holding very nicely. The Arnor Pikemen, things looking a little bit more even for the Rohan player, except in the center here, which is what I was worried about. These Arid Lancers are going to crumble, which is going to allow this huge blob of infantry to roll up this line and surround these Royal Guard, who are holding much better than the rest of his infantry force. Over here in the back, you see some Dunedain bodyguards and these Dunedain steel bows now heavily reduced. Looks like there's some cavalry action going on in the back here. Those Royal Lords from Stefan 2110. And looks like some of his Arid heavy lancers as well, who are looking much worse for wear. But these Royal Lords definitely still a threat. Look at that, 37 in the unit. more than capable, I think, of taking out all the archers, including these dismounted Dunedain knights in the back. You see another unit of Royal Guard here. So the Arnor player really having some trouble with his back lines, trying to fend off the Rohirrim. Over here, the dwarves, looks like their skirmish line is kind of getting beat down a little bit by the High Elves. I can see some High Elven cavalry. Oh dear, this is very unfortunate for the Dwarven player. He does not have enough units who are quick enough to get in here and assist his archers before they fall apart. Yeah, these Black Luck Engineers now down to a mere 8. Very unfortunate for the Dwarven player's skirmish line. Seems to be falling apart. Over here on the infantry side of things, you can see the High Elven player really outmaneuvering the dwarves, who are just kind of pushing through the High Elven lines. There's quite a lot of spearmen left. It says the defeat is certain, but they will hold long enough for the High Elves to get in position and really surround this Dwarven army. It looks like the Dwarven general just went down in combat. Some of those Sindar Blade Masters, I think he was in the back here, trying to get some hammer and anvil strikes on these spearmen and thin them out and allow his infantry to push through and then be able to wipe out the back lines of the High Elves. He was really committed quite a lot of forces to this hammer and anvil attack. You can see a lot of his spare infantry now in the back, trying to move into to the rear of these Dwarven units. But honestly, you can't have a hammer and anvil strike if your hammer is not able to stand up long enough for your troops to really do their job. So I think what we might see is the Dwarven infantry push through this initial line of High Elves and then just turn around to fight these Elder Riddenway spearmen, and all these other flanking units are coming in from behind them. So it's a little bit more even over here, although it seems like the High Elf, Rune, and Rohan alliance really have an advantage over in the center and on the other flank as well. Although the infantry fight, now that I mentioned it, the infantry fight really moving in favor of Arnor, who has a huge number of troops still left over. He's broken through the Rittermark Axemen and the dismounted Arid Lancers and is really starting to put the hurt on these troops. And look at this, a nice big rear charge coming in from these Arthedain men-at-arms who are charging into the rear of these dismounted Rail Guard. And that's going to be the end, I think, of the Rohan infantry force. But he still has a very powerful cav presence in the back. Look at this, these Royal Guard launching some hammer and anvil strikes into these, well, I guess they're really more of a hammer strike because there's not really much of an anvil left. But still, in the back, harassing the lines of the Arnor player, he doesn't have an answer to them right now. It looks like a lot of his cavalry got wiped out by a combined assault, or rather, I think just by the Rohan cavalry, these Rail Lords. Really not to be underestimated at all. These Royal Guard now trying to get away from these dismounted Dunedain, but it's a big charge coming in from these Royal Lords. I don't think this is really going to matter too much because they're kind of going to charge through one of their units, which is going to ruin the charge a little bit. So I think Stefan sees this and is going to try and pull them back and reposition them so that he can get into the rear of some more juicy targets. Like, for example, these Dunedain Knights right here, who are in the process of still pushing back these shield mains. They are holding quite nicely. Alongside these Marshals of the Red, they're doing pretty well, given the numbers arrayed against them. But they are slowly being crushed against the weight of this huge Arnor infantry force. So going back and looking over here, it looks like this Sylvan Elf's pretty much all but wiped out. I think he's got some Sindar Blade Masters still in the fray. A fairly healthy unit of them, but they are kind of trapped between these cavalry and this huge number of running forces. So let's see what his Elder Palace Guard is up to. 52 of them left, a very healthy unit. That's extremely dangerous. They are kind of pushing into the rear of this runic force here, who I think are just kind of finishing mopping up the Here Neck. And yeah, the rest of the Sylvan Elf infantry. But these 52 Elder Palace Guard are going to do work against these Loki Flag Rim. Very dangerous unit with 5 HP. They will stand up to cavalry. They will stand up to just about anything that you can throw at them. Trolls, the only thing they're really vulnerable against is artillery fire, which nobody in this battle has brought. How these Royal Guard here doing not so great against the Axemen of the Axe, who outnumber them 2-1, but and have 2 HP, so really they outnumber them essentially 3-1. But yeah, these Elder Royal Guard I think are still going to put up a decent fight and maybe take down some more of these Brotherhood of the Lance. That could be really useful. A lot of his skirmish line. Oh, this is very unfortunate for the other team. Zanixia's skirmish line is almost completely untouched. I think he lost a unit of Balkos tribesmen over there trying to plug a gap that was made by the Elder Royal Guard, or the Elder Palace Guard rather. But yeah, really the Sylvan Elves just got shut down so hard they weren't able to put any damage onto these Luknar Rim and these Clan Crossbowmen and this fresh unit over here of Balkoth tribesmen, which I think is going to pose a really big problem for the other players. Arnor is definitely going to win this fight, but I don't think he has any skirmishers left. He's got a lot of infantry, which makes him extremely vulnerable to that huge number of skirmishers. It would be very, very simple for Zenixia to just kind of break off his skirmish line in different directions so that the Arnor player can't follow all of them at once, and surround him with skirmishers and then hold him in place with the rest of his infantry, and maybe use his remaining cav units to beat down the Arnor player. I think it's going to be a really tough fight for Arnor from here on out, although he has done a great job in shutting down the Rohirric infantry. Although these Royal Guard, look at them, fighting back to back, still fighting hard for their king and for their country. But I think it's only a matter of time before they get pulled down by the weight of the Dunanite numbers. Over here, let's see, we got some High Elven nobles coming in to really be a problem for the Arnor player. This is very unfortunate. They were really light on the cav on their side, and I think that was a mistake, especially on a wide open map like this. They were light on cav, and I don't think they had enough skirmishers to really shut down the opposing forces. Yeah, these elderly nobles are going to be a huge problem. Let's go ahead and we'll take a look at them in a second, but I want to take a look at the dwarves over here. It looks like the infantry fight is really going in favor of the dwarves. They've kind of pushed through these initial High Elven forces, and though he's brought a lot of his forces in from the rear to try and hold them down, they are still, I think they're going to be able to just deal with these guys over here and then turn around and beat his flanking forces, and then at the same time put pressure on those other enemy archers. The unfortunate part for the Dwarven player is that he doesn't have any cavalry left. That would be a huge boon right now, especially now that the High Elven cavalry has moved off. It would be a great asset in running down these archers and also hammer and anvil strikes into the rear. He's now extremely vulnerable High Elven infantry. See the final individual in the Ironfoot Hammer Guard hacking down a couple of High Elven archers, exacting his vengeance for the loss of his comrades. But I think it's going to be enough. I think that the High Elves are going to be able to hold these guys in place for long enough to bring the rest of their allies to bear, and look at now bringing back their cavalry into what would appear to be the rear of these castle sentries. If these castle sentries can turn around and present a spear wall to these units, they will stand much better in this charge. But it doesn't look like they're going to have the to do that, and they are going to get run down by those. Oh my goodness, run down by terrible casualties to these guys. The unit missing because of that very powerful charge from the elderly nobles. Yeah, the dwarf player wasn't really able to do enough damage to his cavalry to eliminate that menace, and now he's really paying for it. Look at this. At the same time, the High Elven player brought in his nobles. He brought in a unit of Mithlon nobles as well to engage these guys. So some really nice coordinated strikes on the part of the High Elven player, doing a great job. He's really outmaneuvered the dwarves, but just the sheer power of Dwarven infantry, I think, is really going to carry the engagement for them. Take a look over here. It looks like Arnor is just mopping up the remains of the Rohirric army. Most of their infantry now destroy the shield maidens and Marshals of the Red over here. Down on their last legs, Marshals of the Red down to a mere 21. Half of what they were just a moment ago. Over here, though, the victory is absolutely total for Rune and Rohan. They've absolutely just destroyed the Sylvan Elf player, who I think is just down to this one unit of Palace Guard. Down to 43, but look at this. Fighting back to back, fighting Brotherhood of the Lance, Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. Doesn't matter who you put in front of these guys, they will slaughter them. Unfortunately, though, for the Sylvan Elf player, the rest of his army does not have that same kind of courage. You can see the last of them running for the hills now. Some very depleted Sylvan Elf heavy spearmen. It looks like they're going to rout into the waiting arms of some very high cataphracts. So the Sylvan Elf army in absolute disarray. But Rune now leveraging his numbers advantage to bring in the rest of his infantry to surround these Elder Palace Guard and begin to drag them down. Taking a look over here, it looks like Rohan now completely finished with, Rohan is completely finished. They have been destroyed by the Kingdom of Arnor, who unfortunately has a lot of infantry, which is a great thing, but he doesn't have a whole lot of archers left. His Dunedain Steel Bowmen, his bodyguards, and his Dunedain Rangers, once a very proud and very powerful skirmish force, now reduced down to nothing, and he's right next to a player who has a ton of skirmishers. Over here, it looks like a unit of Sinar Blade Masters that I didn't see from earlier. It looks like maybe they were chasing down some routers or something. Now being brought to bear against the dwarves, who have started to lose ground a little bit. They've lost a lot of their numbers, and the High Elves are once again have been able to encircle them. And I think this is going to go really poorly for the Dwarven player. He's still got some nice heavily armored units. He's got some Dwarven nobles, some Guards of Khazad-dûm, and some Ironfoot Guard. But yeah, the High Elf player is much more mobile than these Dwarven forces. He's just going to be able to surround them with archers, which it looks like he is in the process of doing. And just kind of pepper them down and attack them with his cavalry, who looking quite reduced now. But they have been launching, I would assume, constant hammer and anvil strikes into the backs of the Dwarven infantry. So the Dwarven player definitely in a lot of trouble right here, being denuded of his skirmish line and his cavalry. Although he did manage to take down the High Elven general. Look at that. It's a nice little victory for him. But the elves are very, very high morale, and they do kind of have the advantage right now. So I don't think we're going to see any more routing on the part of the High Elven player, at least. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's take a look over here. It would appear that the allies now moving into position, and look at this. The next is just going to form a huge skirmish line. I think he's going to bring his skirmishers forward and just begin to pepper the position of the Kingdom of Arnor. And really, he's down to a lot of pikemen who are extremely vulnerable to missiles. Though look at this, he does have some Dunedain Steel Bowmen left, but his skirmish line definitely no match, I think, for the warriors of Zenixia. And I think before these Dunedain Steel Bowmen can do a lot of damage to the skirmishers of Rune, they're gonna destroy the rest of his army. Look at this. This is very unfortunate. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look over here at the movements of Zenixia. It looks like he's bringing them forward in these nice spaghetti lines. This is a really good skirmishing position. Obviously, I've said this in many videos. A spaghetti line is going to keep your archers alive for an extremely long time. Even very elite archers that can, or very low tier archers can last an entire battle if they are in a position like this, because they don't have to rely on their armor. They are relying on positioning to avoid a lot of damage, because all the arrows are going to be going right over the head and only hitting the first 2 ranks. The Arnor player, on the other hand, very bunched up with his deployment for his skirmishers, which I think is a big mistake. If he wants to engage the Zenixia in a skirmish line, he's going to have to really spread these guys out. Oh no, a huge charge, even making the gap just that much larger in favor of Zenixia, who's now beginning to pepper his lines at the same time that his Rohirric ally is launching hammer nail, or just cavalry strikes into the skirmish line of Creed. I think this is going to be the end for the Arnor forces. This is a really, really bad position for them to be in. They just don't have the means needed to take on these other armies. He has destroyed Rohan, but Rohan's cavalry has been very slippery the whole game, and unfortunately he's not going to be able to have much of an answer to them. He's got some Dunedain Wardens, some decent spear units, and he's got his pikemen, but the pikemen are slow, and these Dunedain Wardens are just not fast enough to get in there and engage those royal lords. Let's go take one more look now at this Dwarven High Elf engagement. The Elven infantry definitely in tatters. You could see some routing here soon. Definitely not from the Centaur Blade Master, but these Mithlon nobles are shaken, and we could see them start to flee. There's still a fair amount of them left. 25 is not bad to have in a unit, but there's just so many dwarves left. All these heavy infantry, and it looks like most of the High Elven cavalry has fallen, trying to take on the Dwarven infantry, who are notoriously resilient to cavalry charges and to missiles as well. So those are the 2 big advantages that the High Elven player had. And it looks like the armor and defense advantage of the dwarves is really starting to take its toll on the High Elves, who are kind of on their last legs here. They definitely need some support from their ally in order to save that engagement, but I think this is definitely a victory in favor of the High Elves and her allies. Yeah, look at this. He's kind of trying to break off some of his troops to deal with this cavalry menace, but at the same time Zenixia moving in and peppering the rear of these pikemen, now down to, look at this, they're going to be down to less than 100 in just a few moments here. And he just doesn't have an answer. He's just not able to really get towards these units, to get towards the Runic army and do anything significant to them. Looks like he did attack kind of, he did sally forward with some Dunedain Wardens and some pikemen against these Helmingas, but they've just been peppered down by all of these skirmishers. Yeah, and all the Rune infantry is still over here. He doesn't really need them to finish this fight, but I think the best chance that the Arnor player has at this point is just to say, you know, fuck it, and just move towards Rune and take him on, because he's just going to get constantly harassed down until he has no army left whatsoever. The best thing he can do is charge and try and screen his advance with some of his remaining Dunedain Wardens. I think he still has some, unless he threw them away in that charge. No, you can see them over here, but they're super unsupported. Yeah, he's got 2 units of them still, but they're very unsupported and just kind of chasing after a couple units of cav. I really think that that's a very bad idea. They're infantry, they're not going to catch cav unless you can find some way to pin them down. So if he's, yeah, either he can move towards Rune or he can start to move towards the dwarf player and try and support him. But honestly, if he does that, I think these skirmishers are going to follow him and harass him every step of the way. So his best chance, I think, for any kind of glory, I suppose, is to run towards Rune and try and take him on and defend his backline with his spearmen rather. Over here, just utter destruction. Almost nothing left of the dwarves at this point. There's some Centaur Blade Masters who are going to be defeated very shortly, I think, by what remains of the Dwarven army. But the dwarves really not an effective presence on the battlefield at this point. The High Elves still peppering them now with arrows. They've got, oh wow, look at this. They've got a huge unit of Northern warriors. These guys were involved in a melee with cavalry, so I'm surprised to see them with 53 still left in the unit. And 43 Elder Enemy archers over here who are now out of ammunition. So the High Elves still have some infantry to throw against the dwarves, but I think the dwarves are going to be able to beat them down, especially once they deal with these Centaur Blade Masters, who are really the biggest threat. Over here, Rohan, it looks like he's opting to go and try and support the dwarves, but Rohan really just not letting him move at all, pinning him down with Royal Lords, beginning to run down some of these Arnor men-at-arms, and really aren't up to the task of fighting cavalry. It's very easy for them to rout, so you want to try and keep away from cavalry if at all possible. Look at this, a huge hit coming in from the rear onto these dismounted Dunedain Knights. We're going to take a lot of casualties from these rope guard. Arnor has a chance, though. He's got some pikemen in the back here. He had a chance to catch those royal guard, potentially. But, oh, look at this. More cavalry yet from the runic player who's moved in his Varied Cataphracts and his Brotherhood of the Lance. He's got still pretty healthy, 14 in the unit, especially at this late point in the game. This is really big to have cavalry unit that's this large. And, yeah, these Royal Guard over here with 18 in the unit. It's absolute slaughter for this poor Arnor player. They're just not giving him an engagement, which is smart play on their part, but I imagine very frustrating for that Arnor player, who did have a pretty decent army at the end of his engagement with the Rohirric infantry, but now it's just kind of falling apart. And look at this, yeah, doing exactly what I thought they would do. Now it's just moving very quickly into the rear of these much slower heavy infantry and just peppering them down. Not really anything that they can do about it. They just don't have the numbers or the unit types needed. And I'm pretty sure all of these skirmish units are extremely well provisioned. They probably haven't been firing too much because they didn't really need to be throughout the course of his engagement with the Sylvan Elves. So yeah, this is pretty much the end for Arnor. Though it looks like maybe he'll get... No, they were going for different cavalry. You know, they're going after those Royal Lords. So it did miss a bit of an opportunity to get into the back of that Royal Guard and maybe pin them down. But there's really nothing he can do at this point. He's kind of been left in the lurch a little bit by his Sylvan Elf ally, crumbling so quickly to the combined forces of Rohan and the Runic player. So yeah, there you go. Arnor is going to now admit defeat and flee off the battlefield. He does still have a fairly large number of spearmen, but against all of these units of skirmishers, there's really nothing that he can do. So yeah, I don't blame him for admitting defeat right there. He was essentially beaten. Over here, it looks like the High Elven archers. Yes, I think they've been committed to the battle. The Norityrno now in combat as well, alongside what remains of the High Elven infantry forces. Elder enemy archers. So we saw it 43, now down to I think 2 at this point. Oh no, still up at 3. Nope, now down to 2. That's third one falling. Now down to 1. Yeah, there's really nothing left of the High Elven army at this point. They have been completely defeated by the dwarves. They did really, I think, do a good job in outmaneuvering the Dwarven player, but they left their main center line a little bit too weak, and the dwarves were able to push through it, and they weren't able to really have the powerful, inescapable encirclement that I think that they were going for. Oh, look at this. You can see all of the cavalry from his allies now coming in to the rear of these Dwarven forces, who just don't have the numbers left to fight all of these archers and these cav at the same time. So that's pretty much the end of the engagement. A very, very bloody battle, though. Almost 80% of the Rohirrim and Friends armies have fallen in battle, as opposed to about 97% of the opposing forces. So a great battle. Everyone, I think, did as well as they could. Apollo the Great, it was very unfortunate for him that he got kind of ganged up on. I think he needed to support his cavalry a little bit better, and he definitely needed some more infantry. He seemed like he was a little bit thin on the ground. Really, the Sylvan Elves have some really nice light infantry options that really could have fleshed out his battle line a little bit further. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the casualties. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I was going to said I was going to have the historical battle coming up next, but unfortunately it was taking a little bit longer than I had anticipated to get done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release another battle replay today as well. So you get 2 today, and then the historical battle will be coming out kind of when it comes out. I want it to be high quality, just like the last one, and really should have a great battle for you guys to see. So yeah, I'll see you then, and take care, everybody. Bye bye.